Okay, go ahead.
I guess the biggest challenge for me is I'm working with Journeys, which is the transitions program, Indigenous students at Dawson. I agreed to take on that course, and then 2 weeks later found out it was going to be all online. So it's a stressful endeavor, but that and New School as well are both types of courses and programs where it very much is about building community and collaborating in the classroom. So it was really, really important for me to find lots of mentors and think of ways to adapt some of the strategies that I was doing on site to online. And I guess the one that I would share that is pretty much becoming the model in some way or another for most of my classes is I guess in classes where I have a lot of text, so when I have students needing to do asynchronous work on a text, and by text I mean it could be a video, it could be a reading, it could be even them interviewing people, but the idea is that typically in my on-site classes they would go off in an isolated way and do asynchronous work, and then come to class, and the real collaboration would happen in class. So the move to online teaching has really been upping my game in terms of getting them to collaborate asynchronously. And so are people having trouble hearing me, or?
Nope.
No, okay. I just want to, it's like in class when you see videos go on and off, you're like, oh, maybe I'm freezing and I need to wait. So I call them reading circles. And again, the focus isn't necessarily on reading, but getting students to kind of work in small groups. And these groups kind of persist over several weeks so that they start to develop some kind of familiarity with each other, at the same time knowing that those groups will change. And so I guess last winter, Chris and I, we helped develop these kind of active learning scripts. And I think that's what I was going to show you today. So what I did was it kind of shows the structure using Jigsaw of getting groups. So I get students to take on different roles. And maybe what I'll do now is I'll actually share my screen. Let me just Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay. Okay, so the first thing I'm sharing, if you have not seen it, just kind of walking through, but I call it a jigsaw with group roles. And what I really like about this is kind of assigning a text or something that needs to be learned outside of class, but actually assigning students in small groups of 4 to 6 people per group, is that each student in the group, while they're reading the text, they have different roles. So in the case where I assign a reading, or they watch a TED Talk, or they watch YouTube videos, they will all read the same thing, but they need, like, one of them their role is to spend more time thinking about and evaluating the source. Like, who is this person that we've been asked to read or listen to? Like, what makes them authority? What kinds of supports do they use for their information? Another person, I make them the devil's advocate. So the devil's advocate, their job is to first understand the perspective and the ideas being presented in the text, but then they have to maybe take some time to, either on their own or through some quick research, try to find some counter arguments or critical perspectives that challenge the ideas in the text. Another one could be a visualizer. So students who have to find some way to turn the text into a visual representation, a graph, a table, if they want to illustrate, just something to bring in another form media the ideas of the text. So I've established kind of a list of roles, and you can really adapt them, so that students in a group, in a reading circle, they will each have a separate role. So when they come to synchronous class time, The first thing, before I put them in their reading circles, the first thing I do is I put all of the devil's advocates together in one group. I put all of the visual artists or the illustrators in one group. I put all the source evaluators in one group. So they first meet in those small groups and they kind of work together at kind of building their confidence and comparing their notes based on the work they did. And then they agree based on all the things they brought to the group, what are the top 2-3 contributions they can make as the devil's advocate, right? And I can even go as far as saying that they collaboratively have to work on creating a Google slide. So that becomes like an artifact for the class. So they spend the first part of the class working together with all the other people from the different reading circles who have the same role as them. So it becomes a jigsaw. And I'm kind of outlining it here, but this is available on the Salties website and you can read through these kind of instructions. So first round, they solidify their kind of knowledge, kind of agree and on what they think the top 2-3 most exciting, important contributions are, so that when they go to the second round, with or without an artifact like a Google Docs or a Google Slides, they then in their reading circles, one by one, go through and in a kind of formal way, explore the text. So they're like, as a devil's advocate, these are some of the things that context I'm bringing. And so they kind of each one by one, after having been mentored by the earlier group, they kind of present and teach each other new angles on the text. And then once that's done, usually I or they themselves will have come up with discussion questions that then they discuss as a group. So there are many, many ways to kind of play with that, but that's kind of a structure. The other thing, before I kind of just open it up for questions, I'm going to share one more thing. So to kind of help with this, so to kind of help with this in terms of technology, so this is a Leung video. I'm not gonna play it all, but for teachers, I created this video on how to organize the asynchronous part of this, structure. So it's a 10-minute video, and I'm not going to play it all.
Hi everyone, my name is Cory Legassic, and I'm a prof at.
But just to give you, I used Loom, and I basically, what I encourage so you can kind of orchestrate and monitor their progress outside of class in preparation, is I use Google Docs. So each group, all of the devil's advocates, all of the source evaluators, so all the source evaluators will have one Google Doc that they collaborate on together outside of class to prepare for class. And I usually tell them, I give them that they need to do this work at least 24 hours before our class so that I can go to the Google Doc and just see where they're at, see where their strengths and weaknesses are, and maybe even add some prompts as they're working. And so I walk through in this video how to use Moodle, how to use Google Docs, and I've been using that in my classes, and it has felt really, really easy to do with them. I think Carmen is going to level up this by talking about Perusall as a tool that you can use for similar kinds of work. And I just want to highlight right now, my video that I made in all modesty has had 38 views, where Carmen's video that she made has had 11,000 views or 12,000 views. So this is the order of presentations today based on popularity. Start with little quiet Cory at Dawson, moving up to international superstar Carmen and her Perusall video. But so the last thing I'll say, and again, sorry, I'm not seeing the chats if there are questions, but the last thing I'll say is that I'm currently working on taking this, active learning script that we kind of developed, and I'm actually using CourseFlow. I was hoping to pull it up so that I could show you one last thing. Oh wow, Vincent, I can see myself on your large screen. I feel way more important now. And I'm wondering what that, anyways, okay. Distracted. But the last thing I would say is, so this AL script that really is like asynchronous work to in-class synchronous orchestration, as we talk about in active learning, I'm actually expanding it to a full course workflow using CourseFlow. So how to take this structure of reading circles and how to do all these different variations. So there's in this script, all the students are reading the same text, and I'm actually rehearsing this structure that I then want to use in follow-up classes, where the next time we do it, we follow the same structure, but this time I actually assign each reading circle a different text. So we're exploring the same topic, but now I get to assign 5 or 6 different texts on the same topic. So students, instead of adopting a role, they've learned to adopt all of the roles. We've rotated those roles a few times, and towards the end of the class, I'm actually getting them to now internalize all 5, 6 roles, but now each group works on their own text, and then they go into their second round of reading circle, their reading group, and each member of that reading group is presenting a whole entire text on the topic, so that by the end of the semester, they're having conversations and they're presenting 5 different thinkers on the same topic. Anyway, so that's kind of the model that I'm working towards. And yeah, so far it's after 1 or 2 classes, and they kind of see and they're getting used to the way I organize the class time. They're slipping into those groups a lot faster, and they're doing the Google Doc work a lot quicker. And so I think it's just, you have to push through the growing pains like anything in the first one, but it's a commitment. And I feel like that commitment is starting to pay off in terms of the efficiency and the kind of meaningful conversations that we're having in asynchronous work time. So I guess that's what I wanted to present. There's lots of other things that are popping up this semester, but that's the big ideal that I'm working towards in at least my new school course. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Wow, that was amazing. And just one thing to confirm, you said some of your work is available on the Saltese website?
Yeah, so what I'll do for the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share this modest video I made, and then I'm going to share the I'm gonna share, you can just, here, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna share the link to the PDF that I just, actually I'm gonna drag it and drop it. There we go, so that's the script, and the video supports that script. The thing that I'm not giving you that I'm still working on, and I wish I could have showed you, is, because I think if you haven't seen course CFlow, like CourseFlow in action, and maybe later on, if we have time, I could show you a quick PDF of what the whole course looks like using this ALA script. But yeah, that's it.
All right, thanks a lot. Very good. Okay, I think Chris had something to add as a general comment.
Yeah, thanks. And that was really neat, Cory. Although I didn't know Carmen had gone viral. That's amazing. I think we're
all in Carmen's shadow.
Shadow, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So I wanted to just make sure that we frame the discussion a little bit or clarify, because there are subtle differences, and I think in these kinds of sessions we sometimes use terms that mean slightly different things in ways that hide those differences. And I just want to highlight the difference between what we would call a cooperative versus a collaborative effort. And so some of the things that we're talking about today, Cory's one is a nice example, because at the very center of it, it's a collaborative effort, or he's getting students to work collaboratively, but he's also got elements of cooperative learning, right? So there's a difference between collaborative and cooperative. And I sort of think of it as, if we were collaborating on a document, we would essentially, as a group, we would work on, what each element of the document had, how it should be written, what the key points were for everything. We'd really be linked in the way we were working together. We'd work on everything together. Now we might decide to say, okay, well, look, Vincent, you go and do this little bit, and Carmen, you go and do this bit, and Kathy, you work on that bit. But we would have already understood what each bit was going to be. We would have negotiated that collectively. So that's collaborative approach. A cooperative approach would be a little more individualistic, in the sense that we wouldn't spend so much time collectively deciding what's in everything. We'd just say, look, Carmen, you do the introduction, Mathilde, you work on the conclusion, and Cory, you do the first paragraph, and then we bring them together. So sort of cooperative is more like this: we're bringing together bits and pieces, whereas collaborative is more interwoven. So I just wanted to bring that. I'll look for, there was a good paper that I had that did a great job of highlighting the difference between collaborative and cooperative. I'll find it and I'll try and put it in the chat in the next little while, but I thought that might help the discussion move along a bit. I think our focus is a little bit more today on collaborative work, right? Does that help, Ahmad? Was that?
Yeah, thank you. And just to use some economic terminology, cooperative work would correspond to division of labor, as we say. So that's the corresponding. So I don't know if anybody has questions or comments for Cory. We can take that up, or else we move on to the next person. And yes, Vince, go ahead.
Cory, how do you get feedback from your students that the Jigsaw approach is working? Do you have a survey, anonymous or non-anonymous?
Well, I guess in New School, one of the things is we build in kind of assessment. We're like process oriented as much as we are about like always, working towards outcomes, but it's like we're constantly kind of checking in on how we're working together. So I don't have, I've been doing kind of assessments in terms of like, because there's so many components, right? Like one of it is like, how are the breakout rooms working out? And sometimes even if they have roles, like there's a culture around breakout rooms, like me assigning facilitators, assigning roles even within that. So, I've been trying to get feedback from them on how like online synchronous classes are working. But I do ask them, because we're moving into week 5, I've been getting positive feedback in the sense that the students are feeling a lot more engaged, and I'm getting experientially by seeing the quality of their individual work, because they also still have to do what I call these exploration journals. So right now I haven't done any survey that's directly, we're going to do that at midterm. I have a midterm assessment I do with them that's individual and both collective. So right now I'm just using a few cues plus checking in with them at the end of each class. I do checkouts with them. I ask them to tell me like 2 takeaways from the class. And I think one thing that's reinforcing it is that the takeaways that they're mentioning, which I think is really positive, are coming from their collaborative work and not from what I say or do in between our breakout rooms. So I'm going to be working on an assessment tool to get them to really think about how these weeks of breakout rooms and reading circles have been working. I kind of want them to live through a few iterations of them first before, because I would expect that the first week there were some kind of bumps and hiccups and it was a little too technical focused. So I kind of want those 5-6 weeks to kind of feel like I can evaluate it. So I'll be doing that right before our week, our reading week.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So Cory made reference to Perusall, which is another way of doing collaborative work. And we have actually two experienced participants, at least two that I know. We have Carmen and Greg. So if it's okay, I would ask Greg maybe to go first, and then after that, Carmen. So Greg, I know you said that maybe you might have used it in a limited way, but still, in whatever capacity that you've used the Perusall and other forms of collaborative learning. So please go ahead. I don't know if you can share your screen with us. If you can't, let me know and I'll make you co-host.
Sure. Yeah, just I'll share my screen in a second.
And by the way, sorry, also start by introducing yourself because some people may not know you.
Well, my name is Greg, and I'm a teacher in the humanities department. And I teach in the winters with Cory in New School. And basically, just before the semester started, I think it was actually Cory who had mentioned Perusall to me, and on my own, I had suggested it as something. And on my own, I decided to give it a shot, and I fell head over heels in love with it. It's definitely my favorite online learning tool. I see Carmen smiling, so I'm guessing Carmen likes it as well. What really sold me on it before I actually started to use it was their little propaganda video on the Perusall website where they describe it as social reading, right? And their whole idea is that it allows you to read things with other people online in the same way that people read and comment on social media posts. And the whole idea, of course, is to encourage the students to do it together. And the video talked a little bit about how their studies had shown that when students feel that they're reading with other people as opposed to doing it alone in solitary confinement, which, well, I guess we all were in for a while, that people enjoyed it more. And I have to say, as somebody, I have all these advanced degrees, but I actually find reading kind of boring sometimes because it's very isolating, right? And so I'm going to share my screen with you. Let me just make sure I've got the right screen here. Because right now, like I'm sure many of you, I have 5,000 windows open. Okay, here we go. So here is my Perusall dashboard. I simply linked to it from my Moodle page. So here, actually, I'll just go back. I'll make this really quick. Uh-oh. I said I was going to make it really quick. Now it's not. Oh, okay. Well, basically, on my Moodle page, there's just simply something that says, a social reading assignment. And here, it takes me directly to, this is my Perusall dashboard. I can go and look at the two courses I have. So let's go look at In Search of Secret Knowledge. And you'll see here that I have 3 reading assignments. The first is Plato's Allegory of the Cave. Second is one of the Gnostic Gospels. And the third is The Madman by Nietzsche from the Gay Science. So let's look at that one. So basically, here you can give them instructions, right? I'm going to put you guys over there. You can give them instructions, right? And so it basically says, I want you to read this text. It's a very short text. And I'd like you to make a comment that is 2 to 4 sentences on it, focus on the language of the text, thought-provoking phrases, encouraging students to both make comments and ask them. Now, there's a number of ways that you can put the reading online. You can link it to a website, which is what I did here. And I did that because it's very simple to look at. It's a very short reading from Fordham University. Or you can upload PDFs, and they will let you upload any PDF as long as you swear to heaven that you have the copyright to do it. They don't make you prove it or anything. So let's just look at all of these comments. Oh my God, look, so we'll see that these are the unread comments. So let's look at them all. There are pages of them, and you'll notice that there's a number of all these threads, and that many students not only made a comment, but I would say most students actually commented on somebody's comment. So here we have, for example, what you do is you highlight a text that you find interesting, and you can make a comment on it. So here's a student that talks about the phrase about the bright morning hours, right? And they're actually making connection to something that they read before, the week before, about Gnosticism. Let's just click on another one about the murder of God. Okay, so here we see a little bit of interaction. So here's a student that talks about what they think, you know, the murder of God means. And then here's a student that responds to it. And I told the student that they can make subjective comments as well, as long as they fall within certain guidelines. Like nothing like, I think this is stupid, or I think this is the best thing. But, you know, comments like, it reminds me of this movie or that movie. And I'll just give you, just click on a few other examples. See, again, here's some where we have multiple students. Sometimes the string goes on quite a bit. And I'll just end my mini presentation by just simply saying that the students, when I do a Perusall assignment, the students come much more prepared because they've all read it, or not all of them, but most of them. Perusall does give you some information. So if you click here and you click on the assignment, you'll see that it gives you some statistics that are useful, right? So 73 comments, so that's almost double the amount of students in the course. So there are 43 students in the course. 14 strings, some unanswered questions. So obviously I haven't done my work. I still have 1 or 2 questions. And the average student spent 27 minutes of reading and commenting, which is about what I would expect. It takes about 6 minutes to do the reading, 6 minutes to read it again, 6 minutes to think about it, and then write a cogent comment. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that Perusall does have a grading algorithm. I don't like it because basically it uses an algorithm to evaluate the quality of the students' writing. And so what I did instead of that is I just simply basically told the students that they would be given a mark based on whether or not they actually did it or not. So they all get a mark of 1. So this is a low stakes assignment. I told them that I want to look through them. As long as they look like they did the basic thing, they all get a high mark. And I told them that I make note of who does a great job, and that will be reflected in their participation mark at the end of the term. And last but not least is the great student view function. So many online platforms do not offer student view functions, but this is a fantastic one. So you get to see exactly what the students see. You know, you get to work on the assignment. It gives you a little tour just to remind you of how it works. You can tell it to go through it all. Then you can tell it to shut up once you're ready. And here's another assignment. This is a PDF, right? And I can add to comments, or I can just start my own thread by just highlighting a passage and typing something. There you go. So I want to stop sharing now, and I'll stop talking. And if anybody has any questions, I'm only too happy to respond.
Thank you very much. Yes, Andrea, go ahead.
So that looks amazing, and I love, like you sold it to me, the idea of social reading. What I'm finding this semester is that I'm spending so much time reading forum posts. I'm just using Google Forum, and I'm just wondering, like, it's so great that they're writing all this, but you know, I'm just wondering how long it takes you. Like, has this added a lot of extra time having to read all these comments?
Well, what I tell the students is that this is part of their low stakes assignment category, right? So what I do is I tell them that I read all the comments, which I do for the most part eventually. I comment on the comments that I find to be, you know, I tell them that I can't comment on them all, so I do participate in the conversation. And for this particular class, it's just low stakes. So I don't grade them. I just simply look to see if they did it and that they put any effort into it. And then if they did, I give them a mark, a full mark. And then, like I said, if they did an exceptional job, I might give them some extra points at the end of the semester. But I totally understand how you feel. Like, I also use Moodle forums, which I think are great in other ways. But certainly, you know, if I were making these assignments worth more, let's say if they were worth more than a mark, then I would feel pressured to sort of, you know, give them a different kind of mark. So what I do with Moodle is I use the rating pull down window, and as I rate them, but very generously. So like, you know, if I feel they did the basic assignment, I'll give them like, you know, an 8 out of 10. If they did a really good job, a 9 out of 10. And if they blow my mind and make me feel like I've seen the light, then they can get a 10 out of 10.
Thank you. All right. I think Carmen has, I have a question, but I'd like to hear from Carmen also, and then maybe both of you can answer my question. And I assume, Vince, that's your old hand up? Or, yeah, can we move on? Okay, so Carmen, you go ahead.
Yeah, it's, I mean, just to add to what Greg was saying, when you look at the comments that the students make, there's also, if I can just, maybe I'll just go back, I'll just share my screen. This was the smaller class that I did it with, but I was just trying to see if I can find, like, I don't have the same type of responses as Greg did, but you know, when you see these highlighted question marks, and there's also, I don't have any check marks on this, but if you click on this, you know, if students can actually like upvote a comment or upvote a question, like, so other students while reading the comments, you know, they could say, yeah, I also found this question helpful, or, oh, I think this is a great comment and I can relate to this, or so that helps to engage that interaction between the students outside of class. The other thing too is it is hard to read all of the comments. I did find it it can take up a lot of time if you really want to read through everything and make your comments. But what I found more helpful is just, if I go back to the assignments, looking at the analytics. So here, you know, like Greg pointed out, you know, there's some information here. What Perusall will do is it'll just kind of pick out the comments that were, or the areas in this reading assignment that have become hot zones. So you can kind of pinpoint an area where maybe you need to have more discussion in class. So you can, or, you know, because you can, before you get going with the lecture, you can spend some time to answer any of the students' questions that came up during the reading assignment. So it kind of gives you an idea of where students stand with the reading assignment, with the content that's in there. So other things that are in there, you know, you can see, you can see the grades. The grades, like Greg said, the marks that the students get, the Perusall gives a mark based on not whether it's correct or not. It's just more like, are they giving a more thoughtful response, making thoughtful comments? And also, you know, you can set a minimum how many comments you want the students to make. So for me, you know, the default for me is like, okay, I need to see at least 3 responses or comments. And Perusall also bases the mark on where those comments were made. So if they were all put at, you know, at the beginning of the reading assignment or all at the end of the reading assignment, it means that they haven't read the entire assignment, right? Possibly. So they're looking for the distribution of the assignments as well. So that goes into the grade. But there's some, you know, it gives you an idea too, you know, when did they do the reading assignment? This is like the heat map to tell you when they were engaged. Usually it's, you know, late in the evening, right before the deadline. And then, you know, how much time are they spending for some of these, for the pages, for each page, right? So it gives you page views and the average time. So again, kind of gives you an idea, well, which part maybe are they having to they're putting more thought into it, or they're maybe having more troubles with the content. So that's some useful information there. The confusion report, this is where Perusall will, you know, highlight the hot zones from the reading assignment. So it gives you an idea of, okay, areas that, oh, I should probably review this before I move on in class. So it's kind of like that just-in-time approach. But yeah, it's so one when you first get started, because students don't know, what to expect, if you are using the marks for their grade, then my recommendation is that you don't count the marks for the first assignment, so that they can test out the system, see what it's like, to have an idea of, what types of comments they need to make or annotations they need to make before they can, score well on this reading assignment. Well, I've done it so that the first assignment doesn't count, or I tell them I will drop the assignment with the lowest grade at the end of the semester, so then they don't feel so pressured by it. Sometimes they go quiet, and so as teachers, you might want to seed conversations, so just add a comment in there. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Wow, that's impressive. I think we should also give credit to Jan, who has created a lot of those documents and a lot of the activities. All right, Andrea, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I have a lot of questions. So I'm just curious what Moodle is I found very hard to learn. I'm wondering from the student's perspective and also from the teachers, is this more intuitive to grasp than Moodle? And did the students, was it a short learning curve for them to pick it up? Because I'm getting a lot of complaints from students, like all these different platforms. And even when I boosted the Moodle, because of what's her name's course, she said boost your page, and it made it look different than all their other teachers' pages, and they were losing where things are. So I unboosted it because it's more, I'm just trying to say, my learning curve and their learning curve is my question.
I don't know, Greg, what do you think? For students, I think it's pretty easy. I'll just quickly show you, if they were on the student end, it's really simple. All they have to do is whenever they find something that they're wondering about, they just have to highlight, and then automatically they just type in their question, enter, that's it. If there is, they can also, where is it? Hold on. There's also you should be able to, oh, here. So you can annotate the text, or you can annotate an image, right? So if you can find parts of an image, they can just highlight it, and then again, it automatically pops up the comment box, and then they can just type in their annotations. They can also bring in, links from websites or add their own images. But in terms of student uses, it's pretty friendly, user friendly, and it's not difficult. And then, all their options are really here. They can see other comments. They can, highlight areas that they like. I don't really know if there's anything else there for students that are as useful. But so on the student end, it's pretty straightforward. On the teacher end, I think it's pretty straightforward as well, if you just kind of follow the steps. I don't know, Greg, do you recall what it was like at the beginning?
Well, I would agree with everything that you said. I think that it's one of the few things I've used that students have had no problems with. The only thing I've had is a couple of students have said, oh my God, I'm sure I made a comment, but it wasn't there when I looked. And I think that is probably because they're not pressing return, perhaps at the end of their comment, so it doesn't get registered. That only happened the first time, and I just simply extended the deadline so that the students wouldn't have a historical breakdown that they were going to lose marks. And the one thing that I've noticed, just to address, Andrea's general comment about students getting overwhelmed with platforms, I totally agree. Part of the reason I like Moodle is that you can access a lot of the other learning tools from Moodle, so as plugins, right? So, for example, one of my students said, Greg, the students like you, but they get annoyed when you make them submit their assignments on Turnitin, because they have to log into a separate website, blah, blah, blah. So what I use is the Turnitin plugin on Moodle. You just simply, when you create an assignment on Moodle, and I'm sure some of you already know this, so excuse me if I'm giving info you already know, but all you have to do is just in the settings of the assignment, just simply say that you want to activate Turnitin, and the students don't have to log into a separate platform. And the same thing with Perusall. it's seamlessly integrated with Moodle. So they don't have to leave Moodle and then go to turn it in, to Perusall. And so for them, I think psychologically, it all seems like it's part of Moodle, even though it's not. And it's really great for the teacher as well. So I know I sound like I'm getting a commission, but I really think they did a good job. And Moodle has its real weak points, especially the gradebook, which I'm sure you've all noticed is really horrifying. But the plugins are great.
Yeah, and
I just wanted to add something on Perusall, because I experienced it recently as a student, and actually I struggled on my tablet to highlight things, and I posted comments and they were not showing, and I'm sure I hit enter. So maybe something that happens, I don't know if you have a low connection or not using a computer but using a tablet, and I have used it as a teacher, and students, they were telling me, well, I put my comment, I don't see it, or when I was answering also student comments, but then when I was refreshing the page, then the comment was there. So, and I find it a little bit annoying. And last time I tried to comment, like spending time trying to highlight on my tablet, that's the main drawback I have with this. Otherwise, I find it really great, but this little technical glitch. And to add on also about the Moodle, well, Perusall integrates very well there because the students already transferred. So I definitely agree with the fact that Moodle is a great tool. I disagree for the gradebook though, because a gradebook compared to Leah, you can enter your own formula. So if you're not just using averages, but you have something like we have in math, you get the best between so many % final, so much term work, and so much final, so much term work. You can implement that right away in your Moodle gradebook, and it does a calculation for you. So not so nice, but more powerful, I would say.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, Mathilde. Chris, do you want to go now or after?
Yeah, well, just a quick comment. I've used Perusall only once, so I stumbled my way through using it in a semester, but I used it as a post activity instead of a pre-class activity, which was interesting. I for years, what I'll do is I do reflective writing ahead of time, and I get students to do that. I really like the reflective writings. And then collectively together, we kind of, in class, we build some course notes, and we go through some activities, and my students are always asking for my course notes afterwards. And I'm always confused, I'm always mixed. I have mixed feelings about course notes because, I think I want them to work on their own course notes, but I also understand that they probably want to see what we did in class and have a clean version of something. And so what I did is I started actually posting my course notes in Perusall after class. And it was a nice way because instead of them just being able to take them and use them without, thinking, or they had to comment on them, they had to dig deeper. And so it was a nice way for me to get them to process the notes rather than just lean on them like a crutch. Now it was the challenge for me in the first semester was managing how to deal with all the comments, and I think I need to get better about, because I didn't want to have to sort of create a need that they had where I would go through all their comments. I really wanted to provide them with a forum for digesting the class notes that we had, and then looking for any hot spots, and then saying in class, okay, I noticed a lot of people are having trouble with these two areas in the notes. Let me just address them quickly and move on, and then next year maybe clean up my notes in that area. So I don't know if anybody's tried it as post-class work, but that's something that is something I see some benefit in. I will try it again. But yeah, as a first-time user, I found the big challenge wasn't sort of learning how the system works, but learning how to manage my time and not having everything go through me. So, how do I get my students to comment on each other's comments and help each other through those comments. And if there's if someone has a question about a piece of my notes or our notes, because we build them in class as a group, you know, if they can help each other untangle their confusion around that, that's where I will spend my time next time I do this. You know, that's where I'll spend my energy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Liz?
Yeah, just to say, we've been doing research on tools like Perusall, and what we found as an important piece for, surprisingly, what was an important piece are two things. One is that, going back to what Chris mentioned, you need to prompt students in how to respond. So one of our colleagues, Phoebe Jackson from John Abbott, has developed a set of prompts. So in other words, we call prompts scaffolds. So she's got a series of scaffolds that she has been working on. And I think I know, if I remember correctly, Carmen, this is something that Jan was asking that he's going to insert, because Jan was the teacher that we were looking at. There were two teachers who participated in the research with the use of Perusall, and Jan is one of them. So he might be able to give you some other insights. And then the other thing was, again, coming from our the research, is the ways that you change your practice towards responding. So what we were finding is that in the beginning of using Perusall, teachers often respond too quickly to their students. You know, the same thing of, you know, any kind of active learning, right? If you let students wait a little bit and start thinking on together, they will start responding. So that was also a critical part of it, is not jumping in too early to answer the questions or to respond to comments, but let students recognize that they can contribute to each other. And when that happened, the students who were using Perusall seemed to appreciate and get into a bit of a rhythm for responding to each other. In fact, Phoebe Jackson's been very successful in getting students to get into that rhythm of engaging with each other through the use of these prompts, both in Perusall as well as other tools like visual classrooms.
Thank you very much. That was really insightful. If you don't mind, please write the name of was it Jackson, in the chat box so that we can search. All right, so we have also Microsoft Teams, and my colleague Marc-André, he has had some experience. It's the first term he's using it. So Marc, if you don't mind, take the mic and also share your screen and show us how you do collaborative work through Teams.
Okay, so I'm just gonna share my screen. So, okay, so I've been using Teams instead of, instead of Zoom, basically, throughout the semester. It's my first time using it, so I'm not using it to its full capacity because I'm using a mixture of both Moodle and Teams. But basically, the way I have this set up is I am meeting my students in what we call the general channel, so which would be here. And I decided to create multiple channels for students to get their work done. So whenever I want them to do an activity in groups, I tell them to just go in their teams, which are all here. So those are basically, I just create like different channels for all of them. So it works a bit like breakout rooms in Zoom, but these I have to create manually, and they can join them even if there's not a class or anything happening. So a lot of them, sometimes they're just going to write posts, or they can actually meet with a video meeting at their own leisure. And I think what Emma wanted me to talk about mostly is the file sharing option. So in each of these teams, they can actually share files that can work together on a file. And they have Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and even Forms. So if ever you open like any one of those and the student starts to work on it, another student can join and they can both work at the same time. So it's a bit like Google Docs, except it's Microsoft. Well, yeah, I don't have that much to say because I haven't experimented that much, but that's basically what I've been doing. So I've been meeting with them in my general channel. So we're having our meetings there, and later on they go in their own teams and they work on their own stuff. But so far, I would say most of them have been using screenshots most of the time when they want to talk about stuff. But some of them are meeting, they're using screenshots and they're just using the posts. Some of them do meet back later on, like when they have like an assignment or anything on Moodle, and they start having discussions here. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I guess.
Thank you very much. No, that was pretty good. And the chat box in Teams is really interesting and accessible to the students. I think Vince also has quite a bit of experience with Teams. So did he leave? Yeah, I think he just left.
Marc-André, I have a quick question for you. Did you populated the participants in Teams yourself? Did you? You had to do that manually?
No, I used the code. So they can you can just go to your team and you can say share a code, and you share the code with the students via Mayo, and they can just register your class this way.
Okay, so what you did is you sent the Mayo to everybody with a specific code in it, then they clicked on that, and that's how they were sent into the Microsoft Teams. Do I understand you correctly?
Well, there's two ways of doing it. There's with a link. I didn't use the link. I used the code.
Okay.
So if you do it with a code, they would have to go through Microsoft Teams through like through Outlook. And when they get there, they're asked to like register for a class, and they put in their code. But I think
go ahead.
Yeah, you can also just send a link. There's a way of sending a link. I guess I can show you.
No, I think I understand the principle of it. If you go through Outlook, then it automatically will then put them into Microsoft Teams. I would say automatically, but there's a mechanism to do that. Now I understand you.
Yeah, it's part of it's part basically of I mean, it's the same process as if they want to access OneNote or what they want to access.
Fine, exactly. I got it. Yeah.
Can I jump in? I'm sorry, guys. Just because, so this is set up by the college now. So if you actually, when you go to create a team, and it just says create team, and instead of starting to enter the names, you just type the course number, and all of your students' list will come up. So this is, this is automated by the college now. So all I had to do was put in 144551 and all the names pop up, and whoop. But the thing that I found was onboarding the students, you have to be really careful. It's not the notifications aren't automatically set up on that channel. So what I did was sent them a Mayo showing them how to turn on their notifications and asking them to download the app onto their devices, because that's where, you know, some of them kind of got lost in the mix. I assumed that it would have a default of having the notifications on, but yeah.
I'm kind of curious about this because I'll try it with I tried it in August, and what I found is that the list that was available in Microsoft Teams was simply not up to date. There were a lot of names missing. I know that with, for example, Moodle, at midnight, the Moodle list is updated from, I guess it's Clara or something. So it's quite fast. But in the case of Teams, sounds really interesting. I'll try that with the course group, and I can see how the issue of the notification doesn't quite work well in Moodle either, and I mean that's an issue. The second question I had for you, Marc-André, do you have a problem with students that are using Macs as opposed to using a Windows-based computer?
Well, I think there's a problem with the Safari browser. So I usually tell them to use Chrome instead, and usually when they use Chrome, it works well. But I know some students were using Firefox, and some of them were having difficulties. So I just tell them use Chrome. I mean, it's available on any platform. So yeah, it should work with Chrome. I can't guarantee it 100% though.
I had a similar, I had the same thing, and I told them to use Chrome. It's a slightly extra problem that's a bit irritating, but I'm teaching quantitative methods where we're using Excel. And of course, then what happens is the keyboard is different, and even the screen is sometimes different. That's a different issue than the one of using Teams.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and Mathilde also told us about another problem with the Windows PowerPoint not being compatible with its own different versions. So some of this, there seems to be some compatibility issues with that. So Vince, you have a question or comment?
Yes, I had a question to expand upon the statement that was made by Kathy. I had a problem with just simply putting in the course number in Teams, and I tried it, it works. But it's not really online or synchronous with the Clara system. So the students would always be lagging by about 2 days. But the problem that I had is by adding the course number, if I had a course that I wanted all the students to be included in my team, even though I don't teach that course, the teacher themselves would be included in my list. They would get a message saying, welcome to the team. And then I had so many complaints from these teachers saying, why did you put me in your team? I said, listen, it's a problem. So the problem has been resolved. I spoke to the powers that be, and Ray Wood and Rob Wood, sorry. He says, yeah, the way to do this, spoke to Natalie as well, says, send us a message that you do not want the teacher to be included. When you type in that course number in Teams, make sure that you've advised Natalie before you do that, or else you're going to get a lot of complaints from teachers who do not want to be invited. That worked out well, though.
Thank you. All right, I have a question, and this question is about collaborative work in general. So it applies to Perusall. I've tried Perusall a little bit. It also applies to Teams and also to Moodle forums. So probably everybody here can talk to it and speak to it. So the problem that I have is the idea of the time gaps. What happens is that when somebody makes an initial post, whether it's an annotation on Perusall or on a forum or a chat box, the people who come after, they get to see that post, and they kind of benefit from that. Let's say they're sharing thoughts, so they benefit from that, or they get the question and they get engaged. But the first person, or the ones who do earlier, they have a disadvantage unless they go back again to the same file and redo. So for instance, if you require them to, let's say, make 3 posts or 5 posts, they could make 3 or 5 posts at the beginning, but then they don't get that engagement level unless they go back again and expose themselves again to it. And this can actually become an infinite regress. If it's like an ongoing discussion and they pose another question, then you will have to ask the participants to go once more to do that. And at the same time, in a way, they also have an advantage, and the advantage is that they can take the first spot. They can be the first ones who highlight that part and comment on it or make that question. And the ones who come later, they could be biased by seeing the post that's already there. So in a way, there's a problem for those who post sooner, and there's also a problem for those who post later. Ideally, it would be perfect if we could have this synchronously. If we could have everybody at the same place, kind of like in a class, and then they discuss together. You put them in groups. Let's say, for instance, they have a text, and they have read it, and they work at the same time. But the thing is, when it is asynchronous, I find it that the time gap can create inequity and different levels of engagement just by the structure of it. It's not really by the students' motivation or anything like that. So I don't know if you have, first of all, noticed that kind of problem in your own design, and if you have any solutions to it.
I hadn't really noticed it, Aman. I think that's a good point. So I don't know how that can be addressed. So
I have an idea that might fix this, but it's one that I'm thinking about it in if we were in class in person, not online. So I don't know how it would work online. But one of the things that I kind of happened upon because teaching is not always a very predictive art. You don't know what you're going to be doing or what you're going to get. So sometimes I wouldn't have time to go over my students' pre-reading reflections. And so what I did is I'd come into class and I'd say, okay, everybody 5 minutes, it's super question time. And I'd get them to engage in a discussion about the readings. And I'd say, I'd like you to find at each table 2 questions about the reading that none of you can answer from the reading. And what's neat is that forces them to kind of process what they've done in the pre-reading. And I wonder if we could do that with, Perusall, for example, where they go and they do their comments, but then they engage in a higher level. In some of the research, they call this a rise above. So the idea is that you want them to process at a higher level. But I wonder if you could use, like a quick discussion at the beginning of class where everybody, leverages what they've done or they've understood through the reading or through the comments and tries to take it a step higher, right? So, someone might come in and say, yeah, well, I didn't understand this. And someone will say, yeah, but I think that's what it means this, but it raises a deeper question, which is, and that conversation is good. So I don't know if that answers the question, because you can't kind of do it in Perusall, but you could kind of, do a hybrid of asynchronous and synchronous and leverage what they've done in the asynchronous part online in your class or in the beginning of your Zoom class, and just say, okay, from what we read and what you did on Perusall, I'd like you to come up with a super question, or what was the most difficult part of the text to read? Or I can think in particular, if it was a literature piece, there's always a paragraph or 2 that are particularly difficult that most of the students are struggling with, so you can get them to focus on that. So like a hybrid approach, just a suggestion, a thought.
You mean a flipped classroom approach?
Yeah, I mean, all of this is flipped classroom because they're getting to do some work, but it's I think Ahmad's question was about the difficulty around, who comes in when and how can affect how they interact with the material. So someone who does the Perusall assignment first has a different experience than the person who does the Perusall assignment at the end. And so, neither one's perfect, because, if you try to do everything synchronously, it just doesn't work because people aren't available or takes up too much class time. But if you could do a hybrid approach, I was thinking of that. So yes, flipped classroom, you're getting them to process something asynchronously ahead of time, but then when you get into the synchronous environment where everybody's there together, you could do something synchronously that's leveraged what had been done previously.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussions? I don't know, Vince, did you want to share with us what you have, or was that the comment?
Yeah, I have some things that may be of interest.
Go ahead, please.
Let me just share my screen. I'm going to turn on the video so you can also hear what I'm about to share with you. Just get all these screens out of the way. Okay, so what I did is, like Field of Dreams, I built something, but nobody came. And I had a webinar on Wednesday, and it was basically on getting feedback from students, even teachers, evaluations, self-evaluations. How am I doing in the synchronous class? How am I doing with the asynchronous assignments that I'm assigning to everyone? And this is what I created. I created 7 different types, actually 8 different types of feedback mechanisms. And I have my little to-do list in Moodle. Just want to give you a sample of what I created. I use Microsoft Forms. And that's a great tool also for something called Immersive Reading. So this is a type of poll. It was a teaser poll. I introduced my topic with this anonymous teaser poll where no names would be recorded of the people responding to the survey or the poll. And it had different ratings. So one of the first questions was, a Zoom webinar started on time. just go right along here with a star rating and give the teacher or the webinar presenter a rating. In the end, you find out what the results are by going through the forums and looking at the responses. So for me, that type of feedback is fantastic with my courses because I'm able to get instant feedback. So I'll go to one of my courses. Take e-marketing and social media. And I always start off with the link for Zooming and the to-do list. Every week there's a different to-do list, but it's based upon this flipped classroom approach where people do the work, look at videos the week before, and they come to the Zoom class and I ask them random questions, or they're asked to share what they thought they were learning with a reflective opinion, as Chris has set up. I even took some of your references, Chris, and I included in most of my classes. So reflective writing is very important for me. And let's go through one of the assignments that I've set up. I'll go back to the top. And we'll open up an assignment. So in the assignment, this is the asynchronous assignment. They have to evaluate what their responses should be. Very unique, very reflective writing has to be included in their analysis and response to the question. So let's go back. Then I asked them to give me a feedback, respond to an anonymous synchronous feedback, which I could analyze right away. So during the Zoom class, the synchronous class, I asked them to ask themselves some questions and see if they could come up with some unique reflective answers. So this was one of the questions: do the Zoom classes begin on time? And I get an instant response. And this has to be filled out to prove that they are really engaging themselves in the course. They have to respond to these surveys or feedback surveys before the end of the class. And I give them an extension usually before the end of the day. So these are the typical questions. The teacher is prepared for the Zoom class. It gives me an indication whether I'm doing a good job. So a lot of them say, yeah, they strongly agree. 20 people. Nobody disagrees, so it's a good sign. And that's what I've been doing with my feedback analysis questions. I think Microsoft Forms can be really used to its fullest if you take advantage of what they're capable of doing. And something is called, there's a concept called Immersive Reader. So if people have some disabilities, whether they're visual or hearing disabilities, so
Type by anonymous.
Dictate what the form is all about. What is the survey all about? If I find that it's not big enough, I could just increase the size. If some people have dyslexic related problems, and just change the color, or until you get to the right thing that matches whatever the student may need in order to read that survey or an assignment. Assignments could be also included in this MS Forms approach. I could put PDF files in there, PowerPoint slides, and using immersive reading, it'll sort of help the student understand. If it's 3 o'clock in the morning, they just want to hear me with their AirPads or AirPods or whatever they have, then they could do this quietly from the comfort of their own home. And that's what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks. Actually, since August 31st, it's working out pretty well for me. That's it.
Thank you very much, Vince. So a couple of important things that you touched on. One of them is the idea of anonymous voting or anonymous participation. I also found that to kind of relieve students of some stress or some impediments that could hamper their participation in collaborative work. So, and we have a lot of different ways. Even on Perusall, you can make it anonymous to participate. Another thing was the idea of the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning. So what you showed us about the immersive reader, the text color, the background color, the text size, those are amazing tools that that we can harness to make our students, to make our courses more inclusive and more accessible to the students. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments on anything, because we kind of have to come to a close?
The comment, I like that a lot, Vincent. I would love to have real-time data like that, especially about, you know, when people are lost or not. Because, you know, when I listen to when I think of my life as a student, you know, I think things are going fine, and then all of a sudden I feel really lost or overwhelmed, and I would want to know when a student is feeling overwhelmed, or, you know, when they reach that cognitive overload bit, or they don't understand. I'd love to have that in real time. And I mean, I'm not expecting an answer on this, but
I have the answer. It is real time. The minute we answer the surveys, those anonymous questions,
right,
we get the feedback immediately.
But they're not answering. Like, I'd almost want them to be answering that survey every minute of the whole time, right? So that, like, like if I was in a Star Trek world, right, they'd, you know, put on some sort of a glove or a watch would tell me that, oh, they're, you know, it's a little bit like the Tesla cars, if anybody owns a Tesla car. But, you know, Tesla cars can tell when you're not, when your eyes aren't focused on the road anymore, or when you're not holding the steering wheel anymore, right? And sort of this live feedback, I'd love to get, you know, almost like a scatter plot where I can see sort of the students' attention starting to fall, so that I know, okay, I need to get into an activity. I have to stop talking. Or you know, and what I'd really love is for students who were confused about something to be connected with students who were not confused about that same thing, so that they could have a little chat on the side and help each other catch up and then come back to class, you know. So I know what you're doing is brilliant, and I think and expect you will get, you know, with analytics and intelligent agent bots, we'll get there eventually. But I'd love that to be real time all the time, so that, you know, I knew when they were starting to lose interest, or when I had to move to something different, or when I was overloading them.
I have that as well, though, Chris. I have Alexa to help me. So I've developed an app in conjunction with a college in the United Kingdom. And my little app is in a little box. It's a mini computer. It's a teacher that you could bring home or put it in your pocket and ask questions, just like Alexa. You have an Echo Dot or an Echo Show. And what this Bolton College virtual assistant has done, which I will be introducing in January in my courses, Introduction to Business, it's called Ada. So the Ada virtual bot, you could ask it any questions, just like Alexa, and you could get immediate answers related to the course, not to, you know, what is the definition of a marine biologist? If I want to know about business, and specifically how to start up your own company, well, I talk to my little box and it works. So I'm planning a webinar on December 15th. You're all welcome to attend. And I will be demonstrating how Ada works with Alexa using AWS, Amazon Web Services.
That's neat.
I'll send you all the invitation if you like.
Neat. Did you say Bolton College?
Bolton College.
Well, my grandfather's from Bolton.
They're the first of its kind. I mean, it's the first time that it's been introduced into the world of education, and students are having a ball with it. They could, if the teacher's not available, Ada is. So you could ask Ada anything you like related to the course that the teacher is assigned to teach. It's a fantastic product.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
Any other comments, questions, conclusions? No? Very good. Okay. Well, thanks to everyone for joining us, for participating, and for your comments. So I'm going to stop recording.